crooked! And I believe you knew that. You'll regret this.
Is that a threat, Vaughn?
A promise.
I've put up with all the wheeling and dealing and backstabbing that I'm going to. We leave in the morning.
You're drunk?
Who's there?
Friendship. Lee was the executive producer. He just did whatever executive producers. I don't know what they do. I think they draw their salary. They get it on. And Lee was good at arguing with the higher ups at the network. He was quite a guy. And then Phil Capice was a nice guy. And during the run of Dallas, about year 6 or 7 or something like that, Patrick decided to leave, and Mr.
Writer Howard Lakin.
Every character in that show, every single one of them, was some facet of Len Katzman himself. The father, brother, son, triangle, that was him somehow. It was very, very important to him. And women were, I won't say women were arm charms, but they were close. And often I felt like I was writing his autobiography, in a sense, as I wrote these scripts.
Here we go.
Although clearly in charge, Katzman answered to executive producer Phil Capice.
I don't think Phil and Leonard got along that well. Phil was really a very nice man. He was very difficult in the office, critical, very tough. Where Leonard was
No, y'all might be surprised, but Dallas is one of my favorite shows of all time, in my personal opinion. People want to call it a primetime soap. People want to call it a dramedy, whatever you want to call it. But let's be real, it definitely laid a culture when it came to pop culture that makes sense. So many moments have been satirized. So many things this show has done, people are doing now. You know what I'm saying? So many iconic characters came from this show. Like you had Jock and Ellie, played respectively by Jock Davis and Barbara Bel Geddes. You had fucking Bobby, played by Patrick Duffy. Yeah, Cliff, played by the late great Ken Knievel. By the way, rest in peace to Jim Davis and Barbara Geddes. You had, of course, Sue Ellen, the original Desperate Housewife. Let's just keep it real. And last but not least, you had the one, the only, G.I. Ewing, played brilliantly by the late, great Larry Hagman. You know what I'm saying? And, you know, originally when the show came out, it was supposed to have been pretty much about Bobby and Pam and their relationship, but JR's performance and JR, the character himself, was like the symbol of the show, and especially a symbol when it came to when America was transitioning from the escapism 70s to like the Reagan conservative-led 80s and stuff like that too, you know what I'm saying? So, yeah, man, but whether people want to believe it or not, he almost left the show twice, believe it or not, you know what I'm saying? So, yeah, this is going to be a very cool story, very interesting story about Larry Hagman and where he still went Dallas. So the show debuted on April 2nd, 1978. It was originally a miniseries mid-season replacement that aired right after Alice, you know what I'm saying? And it was on the 10 o'clock slot. And even though like the miniseries was like 6 episodes, the whole miniseries was created as a series pilot. But the network nor the producers, they didn't believe that the show would make it past those 5 episodes. And it was shown like late Sunday night and whatnot, even though it did have pretty low ratings in CBS standards, it proved to be popular enough to turn into a regular series because it got people talking about what kind of show it was. It was actually the series creator David Jacobs' partner Michael Phileman that actually suggested to name the show Dallas. And even though the series creator David Jacobs, he never knew nothing about the city other than the fact that John F. Kennedy was assassinated there, and of course the Dallas Cowboys. Because originally he wanted to name the show Houston and whatnot too, whereas Dallas actually was known for like its banking and insurance, so it would probably be like a whole different landscape naming the show Dallas. Now, one of the key factors when it comes to Dallas was producer Leonard Katzman, who's been part of the show since season 1. And by the time we got to the second season, his influence has increased and he began writing and directing the episodes. And David Jacobs, he actually got more of a day-to-day duties as an executive story consultant by the end of season 2. And it was the second season, whereas like the show actually got their first full season that debuted on September 23rd, 1978, all the way to March 30th, 1979. Pretty good season for the most part, you know what I'm saying? And it was also that same time that they actually was working on the spinoff Knots Landing, you know what I'm saying? So when it came to the executive producers of Dallas in its first 3 seasons, it consisted of Philip Capise and Lee Rich, you know what I'm saying, who pretty much would stay with Dallas and for the first half of its run, to say the least, and whatnot too, you know what I'm saying? And with like Philip Capise and Leonard Katzman and Cliff Freeman, and of course Arthur Bernard and stuff like that, you know, those were all the ingredients it was to make the show a success, a success for what it was. Now, fast forward to September 21st, 1979. This is where the show debuted in its 3rd season. And the 3rd season pretty much was, in my personal opinion, this is where the show really excelled into popularity. And it's crazy too because it was actually now on the Friday nighttime slot and it aired right after Dukes of Hazzard. It's kind of crazy too because of the fact that the 3rd season was originally supposed to have ended on February 29th, 1980, with the episodes Jock's Trial, Part 1 and Part 2. However, while the show was still in popularity and whatnot, CBS pretty much wanted to add another 2 episodes in order to finish off the season.
It ain't a pleasant duty, sir. You got a job to do. You do it. Sorry, Jock. I gotta read you your rights.
What the hell you talking about, Fenton?
I have to arrest you in connection with the murder of one Hutchinson McKinney. You have the right to remain silent. If you give up the right to remain silent, anything you say can and will be used
With
against
a last-minute order for 4 additional episodes, the writers had to figure out what to do.
Camille, Marchetta, Leonard Katzman, and myself met, and we had to try and come up with something. And finally, and I cannot to this day tell you who said it, one of the 3 of us said, oh my God, why don't we just shoot this son of a bitch?
Coming up, Hagman knows when to hold 'em, knows when to fold 'em, and knows when to walk away.
So now there was an additional amount of PR and fervor, and not only who shot JR, but would JR return? Would Larry come back?
And later, Lucy gets bucked off her mount.
I was in a total state of shock, and he started to cry.
By early 1980, Dallas was so popular that CBS executives ordered additional episodes at the last minute. Scrambling for ideas, the writers decided someone would shoot JR. Nobody dreamed that this simple cliffhanger would ignite a firestorm around the world.
And Long and behold, we actually got the famous Who Shot JR cliffhanger on the episode of House Divided. Now, this episode was a pretty famous episode when it came to the show. Not just for Dallas, but I feel like one of the most famous episodes in TV history and stuff like that. Because, this was when JR was pretty much screwing everybody out of that oil deal, especially like the cartel members. Everybody wanted to get their hands and wanted to get back at JR and stuff too, because next thing you know, he was also hurting his family in his long run too, or shit like that. You know what I'm saying? So those last couple of minutes in that episode, JR unknown assailant and stuff like that too, and it pretty much ended on the whole world. The whole world was pretty much like gravitated towards all of this. You know what I'm saying? It was like saying, "Who shot J?" It bought the face, "Who shot JR?" And you had like this phenomenon being included like in T-shirts, music. You know what I'm saying? Like it just became parodied.
Who's there?
On their covers, that's one thing. But when a prestigious news magazine like Time gives Dallas and JR its cover, plus a 7-page color spread, including a list of possible suspects, it becomes clear just how big Dallas really is. Who Shot JR, says Time, is the most tantalizing secret since Watergate's deep throat. Promoters have made hay and a lot of money on the JR shooting. A whole new line of sportswear has hit the youth market. There are JR jeans and a host of JR shirts.
It just became parodied by a lot. But even though it was all good for Dallas, there was still some tension behind the scenes. Like Larry Hagman, JR's portrayal, he felt like since like the show was getting like this ratings phenomenon and the whole Who Shot JR, he believed that, it was time for him to renegotiate his contract. And pretty much, CBS and Lorimar, which was the company that was owning Dallas and stuff like that, you know what I'm saying? They didn't really take him seriously and whatnot when it came to Larry Hagman's demands and stuff. So Larry Hagman pretty much went on a strike and stuff like that too, and he left and he pretty much like went on like a little strike, and when he relocated to Europe at a time too, because he wanted a salary increase. Now, it's kind of crazy because of the fact that, the powers to be in Dallas, they didn't know how to make upon, Larry Hagman's demands and whatnot too, you know what I'm saying? And you guys also got to remember, he did not want to make the same mistake he made when it came to his first successful TV show, I Dream of Jeannie, which ran from 1965 all the way to 1970. And, that show, pretty problematic on that show as well too, just due to like the creative decision of the show and the fact that he actually relinquished his royalties from the show early, even though at that time he didn't really know too much about royalties. There was even stories about how he pretty much was flying on the airplane and he pretty much outside of the plane while navigating it. True story, pretty much. That's pretty much what he didn't want to actually repeat when it came to Dallas. And it's also crazy too because the fact that he actually did an interview with TV Guide, and he said, and I quote, "All of a sudden at 49, I'm a sex symbol. All well and good, CBS was making a bundle. Lorimar, the production company, was feeling no pain either. Me, the guys peddling with the t-shirts with my face on them, were probably doing better than I was," unquote. So, fast forward to June 12th, 1980. This was the first day of shooting the new season. And of course, Larry Hagman, he was a no-show during that season and stuff like that too, because he was still in London. He was still in London on protests or whatnot, so they actually had to get pretty much a stand-in when it came to like Larry Hagman's place on the show, you know what I'm saying? So there was talks that Larry Hagman was about to be replaced by Robert Culp. And you guys should know Robert Culp as he was one half of the show, I Spy, co-starring Bill Cosby, and you know what I'm saying. And at that time, you know, he was still a big name to fill the gap. But then another thing that happened around this time was the actors' strike in 1980 that ran from July 21st to October 24th, 1980. And this was a crucial strike because of the fact that a lot of TV shows actually had to delay their premiere while the actors were still on strike. That brought out like a lot of people wondering when Dal was going to come back and answering the question on who actually shot JR. But then again, Dallas returned for its fourth season on November 7th, 1980 with the episode Normal Mr. Nice Guy. And it was just pretty much the whole family learning the news that JR got shot and whatnot. And then you actually had Larry Hagman actually appearing at the end of that episode, you know what I'm saying? Because most of the episode was shot with like a stand-in for Larry Hagman's body. Pretty much people didn't know what was going to happen with Larry Hagman's future on the show, you know what I'm saying? So next thing you know it, there was like plans that they wanted to actually have JR have plastic surgery just in case they were able to get Robert Culp, you know, taking over Larry Hagman's spot, you know what I'm saying?
Any word yet? No, he's still in surgery. Pam, I'm so glad you're back. Thanks, baby.
Thanks for coming.
How'd it happen?
Well, JR was working late. Somebody put a couple of slugs in him.
Was he all right?
Not done too good. This is Detective Frost, Bobby.
I'm working on your brother's shooting.
How can I help?
I need a list of names. Someone who might want to shoot him.
So it ended up happening that, you know, Larry Hagman, you know, he pretty much went back to renegotiate his contract and stuff like that too. He really did not want to end up like other people like, you know, Farrah Fawcett and Suzanne Summers of their own show. You know, Farrah Fawcett being part of the show Charlie's Angels and Suzanne Summers being part of the show Three's Company, who had famous contract holdouts when it came to their careers and stuff like that too. Lauren Martin did not want to lose him, and of course Larry Hagman didn't want to lose the show too and stuff like that too. So they ended up actually paying Larry Hagman $75,000 per episode, which at the time was a very high substantial amount when it came to like the show and then when it came to like TV payouts as well. Now, as far as the fourth season goes, you know what I'm saying, we didn't actually get to find out who shot JR until November 21st, 1980 on the famous episode Who Done It. And it was with this episode where it was revealed that, you know, Sue Ellen's sister, Kristen, was one that pulled the trigger on JR. And when it came to this episode made a lot of history because it actually got in between 83 million to 90 million American viewers watching the show. And it was actually the highest rating TV episode in US history, right up until 1983, where the final episode of MASH.
Well, you were right. I was at that condo that night, looking for JR. And yes, I did have his gun. But you saw how drunk I was, and you still gave me a drink, knowing I'd put the gun down to take it.
Who's there?
You went to the office that night with JR's gun. It was you, Kristen, who shot JR.
So to this day, it's actually this Who Done It is actually the second highest Nielsen rating for a single television broadcast in the U.S. history. And you know, with the rating success of the show, you know, the fourth season actually ended up in #1 in the ratings. And pretty much when it came to like Larry Hagman's salary increase, a lot of the other actors on the show, like Patrick Duffy and Linda Gray, which was actually some of his closest friends on the set, they pretty much was rooting him on because with Larry Hagman getting more of a salary increase and whatnot, it led for more advantages for them, you know, the increases, and then you also had them beginning to direct more episodes of the show. It got to the point whereas anytime that the people needed help with the show, they either went to Larry Hagman or Patrick Duffy You know what I'm saying? And this led to like the changing of the guard. And Larry Hagman apparently had like suggestions for storylines. Like, it was said that he was responsible for having Ray, Jock's illegitimate son. Anytime some of the other actors were complaining about like the wardrobe, or in case anything didn't really seem right with like their roles, they would always just go to Larry and whatnot, you know what I'm saying? And unbeknownst to Dallas, they had pretty much a lot more other primetime soaps premiering at that time too, due to the success of the Who Shot JR storyline. Like, you had Dynasty, you had shows like Falcon Crest, The Colbys, of course Knots Landing, which was of course a Dallas spinoff and stuff too, you know. And with primetime soaps happening a lot in the early 80s, a lot of the sitcoms at that time too was kind of going down in the ratings and stuff. Stay tuned more on that, you know what I'm saying? But then, yeah, man, so Larry Hagman's power really began to rise a lot in backstage. He actually banned cigarette smoking on the set. Like I mentioned, he got plenty of his cast members directing certain episodes a season. So things were pretty much becoming more smoothly running and stuff like that too, you know what I'm saying? And everyone pretty much had like commendable things to say when it came to Larry Hagman. Pat Colbert, who actually played Dora May, usually the hostess of the Oil Barons Club, pretty much went on the record and said, and I quote, "We all adore him. He and Patrick Duffy keep us in stitches during rehearsal. They are life preservers when things got tense." And she also talked about the time when Larry Hagman actually saved somebody from choking on set, you know what I'm saying? Which was very interesting. He gave them the Heimlich maneuver and stuff too. So yeah, man, that's very interesting as hell. So now we're gonna get into the 1984 to 1985 season. Now, as we get into the end of like the 7th season, Barbara Bel Geddes, who played Miss Ellie, she actually had to take some time off because she was experiencing some heart issues and whatnot, you know what I'm saying? So she actually, on March 15, 1983, she actually avoided a heart attack, but the media falsely reported that she suffered a heart attack and whatnot too. So she ended up wanting to take a emergency quadruple bypass surgery, which means that the first couple of episodes on the 8th season, Barbara Bel Geddes, you know, she had to take some time off, and she was actually replaced by Donna Reed. Now, you guys should know who Donna Reed is. She was part of, she had her own show called The Donna Reed Show. She was famously in the movie It's a Wonderful Life with James Stewart. And this really did not sit well with certain members of the cast, including Larry Hagman, because he felt like Donna Reed was miscast, allegedly. And he was also trying to campaign that his mom actually was playing Miss Ellie until Barbara had came back for the role, because of the fact that Larry Hagman was actually born and raised in Texas and stuff like that too. That's what happened during like the 8th season. You had Donna Reed pretty much taking over Miss Ellie and whatnot too, you know what I'm saying? And
Hey, wait a minute. There's Clayton. But where's Mama?
I don't see her yet. But she's got to be there with Clayton.
There she is. Welcome home, Mama. Welcome home, Mama.
Oh, welcome home. I'm so glad to see you.
You too.
Ray.
Miss Ellie.
You've been good to each other, I can tell. So
Welcome
well.
home, Miss Ellie.
Thank you for coming to see me.
Mama.
Oh, JR.
A rumor spread that Larry Hagman wanted the new Miss Ellie to be played by his real-life mother, musical comedy star Mary Martin.
Then a decision was made to hire Donna Reed.
In June, the former star of The Donna Reed Show signed a one-year contract. The Academy Award winner was intrigued by the role of Miss Ellie and had ideas for strengthening her character. The 63-year-old Reed knew oil families when she lived in Oklahoma with her husband, Colonel Grover Asmus.
Miss Ellie had only one thing to do, and that was to raise a coffee mug. Donna wanted to change the character somewhat so that she would be more like the people we knew in Tulsa. The oil men were the potentates of the region, and the women many times were the power behind the throne.
But replacing the beloved Belle Geddes would not be easy.
The cast had become attached to Barbara Belle Geddes, who quite frankly had become the mother of the cast offstage as well as on.
Yeah, man, the show was still doing good. It was still popular. But what people really need to notice was the fact that this was actually the first time that Dallas got taken down from the ratings by Dynasty, which arguably was the second most popular primetime soap of the decade and whatnot too, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, that was pretty interesting and whatnot too, you know what I'm saying? So, but then they had some more problems that was actually coming about, you know, where Miss Bobby Belle Geddes had actually was feeling better and she wanted to return to the role of Miss Ellie and stuff like that too, you know. The producers actually had to fire Donna Reed. They actually had to fire Donna Reed from the show, which that caused a lot of controversy because of the fact that Donna Reed, she actually wanted to sue Laura Mara and whatnot too because of the breach of contract and everything like that too, you know what I'm saying? And this really did not sit well with her. This really did not sit well with her and whatnot too, as also at that time, she was battling cancer. She was battling cancer at that time too. So, yeah, man. And a lot of people have also went on to say that with all of the stress from Dallas and stuff like that, it played a toll on the health. And unfortunately, on January 14, 1986, Donna Reed had passed away from cancer. So yeah, that's crazy. So by the end of the 8th season, there was supposed to be 2 other cast members that was planning on leaving and whatnot too. You know, you had Charlene Tilton, who played Lucy. She wanted to leave the show just to do some other things, but the most crucial departure would have came from Patrick Duffy, who played Bobby. You know what I'm saying? That was supposed to be the crucial departure right there and stuff like that, you know what I'm saying? And at the end of the 8th season, they had an episode called Swan Song, where it's pretty much like, you know, the Ewing celebrating the fact that they got Ewing oil intact and stuff like that, you know what I'm saying? Because it was that storyline where Cliff came up with a clause that Digger Barnes actually had some stake in Ewing oil and whatnot, and he was planning on taking like JR, Bobby, and Ray to court. But then you had Jack Ewing saving the day at that time too, so they were all celebrating. And a lot of things was happening at that time in that episode. Like you had Lucy, you know, reuniting with Mitch and whatnot, and they actually remarried, and that was supposed to be in Lucy's like swan song and whatever, no pun intended. And then you had Bobby and Pam like rekindling their love with one another, and Bobby actually proposed to Pam. But then tragically, you had Catherine, who was like Pam's sister or half-sister, running over Bobby because, you know, she wanted to run over Pam. And then that famous scene when Bobby died in the hospital from internal injuries, you know. Yeah, that was a pretty very good episode. A lot of fans have also said that was like the Dallas's best moment when it came to that episode. So, yeah, that was...
Be good to each other. Be of help. I love you so much.
No.
Don't do this to me, Bobby. Don't leave me.
Bobby, no.
episode, whatnot. And so with Patrick Duffy and Charlene Tilton leaving and whatnot, Larry Hagman was pretty hurt and everything like that. And you also got to remember the fact that by the time you had the 9th season of the show, which premiered on September 27, 1985, they actually got Barbara Bel Geddes back as Miss Ellie and everything like that, you know what I'm saying? And it got to the point where like Larry Hagman and Linda Gray actually visited her in her farm to convince her to come back. Yeah, but speaking of the 9th season, yeah, this was a very interesting season, like of the fact, you know what I'm saying? You know, they were trying to like maneuver their way around with certain episodes, you know, trying to do different things. Like, I feel like the first half of this season was actually very good. Some of Dallas's best episodes, like the Family Ewing, you know, the aftermath of Bobby's death, and then you had Rock Bottom with Sue Ellen, you know, in the alcohol, you know, pretty much in that whole alcohol phase and whatnot too, you know what I'm saying, which Linda Gray did a thing on that episode. But however, you get towards like the second half of this season, and you have certain storylines that seem a bit too out there, even for the show. You know what I'm saying? And Larry Hagman was not amused, or he did not like the fact that the show was trying to be like Dynasty and whatnot too. You know what I'm saying? Because with like a lot of the out there avant-garde kind of storylines and stuff like that too. So he was thinking about leaving the show once again. And whatnot. You know what I'm saying? So him and Philip Capice actually fought over some of the show's newest touches and stuff like that too. And Larry Hagman got some support from several other cast members who felt like the show was not what Dallas stood for, if that made sense. Like there was like a lot of James Bond type adventures. And most importantly, they were trying to make the JR character weak, which is something that Larry Hagman really did not like about the new writing staff and the new writing that was taking a toll and stuff, you know what I'm saying? Because I forgot to mention that Leonard Katzman had also took a break from the show around this time too, you know what I'm saying? He wasn't as hands-on in this season as in previous seasons and shit too. So Larry Hagman was also thinking about leaving the show once again. And by the time of the end of the season, they were trying to think about going back to its roots and whatnot, you know what I'm saying? And this is what happened when they were trying to get Patrick Duffy back to the show. Because at the same time, Patrick Duffy was trying to make a name for himself. You know, he lost the lead in another TV series called Heart of the City. And Larry Hagman wanted to bring him back to the show and whatnot too. You know what I'm saying? He invited Patrick Duffy over to his house, and they were talking and everything like that, and he convinced Patrick Duffy to come back to the show. But the question would be, how would they be able to resurrect Bobby Ewing when he pretty much died on screen? And what they were about to do was the fact that it was going to change television forever. And they had the episode Blast from the Past, where pretty much at the end of the episode, you know, pretty much Jamie got blown up in a car and everything like that, you know what I'm saying? And pretty much a lot of stuff was happening. Pam and Mark had gotten married, but then Pam had woken up from her sleep and she hears a shower, and she pretty much opens the shower door, and here comes Patrick Duffy in the shower and whatnot. Again, end of season, you know, new cliffhanger and stuff like that too. And people were left guessing, what was that? Was Bobby back? How are they going to explain this and stuff like that? So meanwhile, behind the scenes, Larry Hagman and Phil Capice were still arguing about the status of the show and the lagging ratings and stuff like that. And Phil Capice, he just pretty much has had it, was trying to like work on a sinking ship that he pretty much left the show. And Leonard Katzman became the new executive producer of the show. And so on September 26, 1986 came, Dallas actually returned for its 10th season. And in my opinion, this was like the last great season of Dallas, in my personal opinion. You know what I'm saying? And so it was explained in the first episode that Pam was actually dreaming of the fact that the whole 9th season was pretty much a dream, which that did not sit right with a lot of like a lot of fans and whatnot, because the fact that they felt like it was pretty much like an easy way out. Because as crazy as the 9th season was, you pretty much had like a lot of character beats that was happening around that time. Like you had Ray and Donna wanting to adopt a child. You pretty much had JR and Sue Ellen wanting to like rekindle their love with one another, and JR wanted to listen to Sue Ellen more. Of course, Pam and Mark were supposed to have gotten married, so they had to like pretty much reverse a lot of the shows and reverse a lot of the plot and storylines when it came to that season, which is why that 9th season is referred to as the dream season. And people were kind of put apart by that. I know Susan Howard, who played Donna, she pretty much was a huge critic when it came to the fact that the 9th season was referred to the dream season, and she left at the end of season 10. And then you also had another famous departure from Victoria Principal. Victoria Principal also wanted to leave at this time too, and shit like that too, you know what I'm saying? Because I think she wanted to leave as early as maybe season 8, but then she stayed for another 2 years and stuff like that too, because at that time she was working on her business line at that time too. So now you have Bobby's back, but now Pam was about to be gone. And Bobby and Pam were like the central couple when it came to Dallas and stuff too. So, yeah, man. And so, like I said before, season 10 was like the last great season when it came to Dallas. Now, the show ran for 14 seasons. And with those 14 seasons, those last 4 seasons was filled with plenty of budget cuts. Plenty of other cast members was leaving, like Linda Gray, who plays Sue Ellen, had left the show. You know what I'm saying? Because she felt like her character went as far as she can go. Steve Kennelly was caught up in the budget cuts and he left the show. And yeah, man, and then Dallas pretty much was going through budget cuts and they didn't refilm the show in Dallas no more and stuff like that too, you know what I'm saying? And so by the time we got to the last season, the only original cast members that was left was Larry Hagman, Patrick Duffy, and Ken Knievel, who played Cliff Barnes. And you also got to remember, by the time the late 80s rolled around, sitcoms was pretty much back to the forefront when it came to like the popularity with TV watchers. Of course, with NBC's, must-see TV lineup, you had The Cosby Show and Cheers, Night Court, they were like the popular sitcoms at that time too, you know what I'm saying? So, yeah, man, that was pretty much what's happening. So, Dallas pretty much was on its last legs during those last 3, maybe 4 seasons. And, it's kind of crazy too because this show definitely started off like as one of the most groundbreaking and one of the most funnest shows, entertaining shows to watch. I don't even consider the show to be like a soap opera in those years. But once they, were competing against Dynasty and all that came out, you know what I'm saying, then that's when the show was pretty much on their last legs. And that's why on May 3rd, 1991, Dallas ended its run after 14 seasons. And the craziest thing about it was from what I looked up, the episode was not originally supposed to have been the final episode. Yes, the episode Conundrum, where JR pictured life without him. From what I looked up, it was not really supposed to be the last episode. They were supposed to have one more season after it, but ratings just went down so much. Mind you, this was a show that ran from 1978 to 1991. Like, not a lot of dramas can really say that, you know? And like I said before, at that time, TV was just changing a lot, and Dallas ended its run in 1991. You know, a shadow of its former self, if you ask me. But that wasn't really the end of Dallas, because the show had plenty of reboots and reunion movies. For example, in 1996, they did the Dallas JR Returns movie, which that pretty much took place after the cliffhanger ending in 1991. You know what I'm saying? And then, believe it or not, that was actually a rating success. And it went on to, they went on to do War of the Ewings, another primetime reunion movie that debuted in 1998. And if I'm not mistaken, that was actually, you know, no, actually, scratch that. JR Returns was actually the last thing that Leonard Katzman did, you know, during the time, you know, when he was alive, because he actually passed away. He actually passed away in 1996, September 5th to be exact. And of course, you know, in 2012, they had the Dallas reboot series, which that aired on TNT. I remember when that reboot series actually premiered. I'm not gonna lie, that was actually a good reboot. That was before the whole reboot craze started happening. That actually happened at least a little before a decade before the whole reboot craze started happening. What's up, bro? And it's kind of crazy too, because during the second season of that reboot, Larry Hagman was diagnosed with acute myeloid leukemia. So, you know, he was, you know, you can tell by that last season in the TNT series that, you know, he was losing weight a little bit, you know what I'm saying? He kind of looked like he wasn't really that well. And then on November 23rd, 2012, you know, Larry Hagman passed away, you know, from the leukemia. Yeah, man. Very sad. But at the same time, he left like an incredible legacy on television, you know. And one thing I can honestly say about Larry Hagman, he really did fight for what was right for the show, whether it was, you know, incriminating or whether it was just people thought he was just being like a tyrant. You know what I'm saying? He has so much passion for all of his like television work that he's ever done, you know what I'm saying? And regardless of what he did in his personal life, because that's another story for a different day, you know, the whole Dallas family, like, you know, Patrick Duffy, Linda Gray, Charlene Tilton, you know, they all said how much, you know, Larry Hagman was such a fun to be with. Like, they were all close with him, you know? So, yeah, man, in conclusion of this video, you know, Dallas pretty much was like one of the most groundbreaking, revolutionary shows. It pretty much set the standard for a lot of dramas to come. If like Dallas influenced shows like from Empire, you know, Desperate Housewives, you know, all that stuff. You know what I'm saying? So thank y'all so much for watching. Make sure y'all subscribe and like this video, and let me know whatever beef you want me to talk about, and I will see y'all later. Peace.